The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Weyburn City Council, held here in Council Chambers at 6 p.m. Monday, November 14th. The first item is Mr. Mickle is not with us again here, filling in for Ms. Nicole. No, she, yes, but Hurricane Nicole, yes. And how about that? So, anyway. Kind of a Johnny Carson start off here. So anyway, approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting and strategic planning and priorities meeting held October 24th. Do you have approval first?
I will make that motion, Your Worship.
Second?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Additions to the agenda, Mr. Warren?
Thanks, Your Worship. No additions from administration tonight.
Council? Seeing no additions, there's no public hearings and notices, no delegations, proclamations, or petitions. There's no reports of standing committees. We have a consent agenda of the cash activity report, fire department report, river park report, public works report, and water treatment plant report. And with that, do we have a motion, please, to accept and receive these?
Your Worship, I'll make a motion that the items on the consent agenda be accepted as presented.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion.
Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Those will be found on the city website, right? All those one reports. Motions. Accounts payable, please.
Your Worship, I move the purchase in the amount of $1,608,119.92 from October 21st to November 10th, 2022 be passed for payment.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. I guess, okay. I was going to say that I just wanted to make note that with the Weyburn housing there, that it is increased from, I believe we paid for the shortfalling, our 10% that we have to pay on there, and the province pays the 90. It is gone up to $77,000, and I believe that was an increase from probably when I first took over here 6 years ago. It was around 25,000 or something like that, and we are now at 77. So we as a council are looking at that also as to why and where this all comes from. And we're having a meeting here December 5th. I'm meeting with Weyburn, Sask Housing over other matters. Director of Finance, Ms. Al, Tax Enforcement, 6-month notice, if you would, please.
Good evening. So our Abby Gary, our city assessor, has provided the 6-month notice as per Section 23 of the Tax Enforcement Act. A notice will be sent to all of the properties listed, and it'll be served to anybody that has an interest in the property. So this gives the owner of this property 6 months to contact us and to make an effort to put a payment or make payments on their 2021 original roll. So the total amount, is $112,398.65. It's 42 properties.
Do you have a motion, please?
Your Worship, I would move that the city assessor be authorized to continue under Section 23 of the Tax Enforcement Act to serve 6-month notice to all properties that still have outstanding property taxes from the 2021 original roll for a total of $112,398.65 as presented.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Questions?
I don't know if you know this answer, or how does that compare to other years?
I thought you might ask.
Yeah.
So I actually looked it up. Last year, it was 74,000, but then the year before, it was 227. So it kind of depends. I think
varies, yeah.
the year before, there was a property with a high assessment. So it's comparable.
Yeah.
It's not outrageous.
Okay.
And
Mike,
scrolling through this, those are all personal properties as opposed to commercial properties?
No, it would be both.
Both? Okay.
Yep.
yeah, my quick figuring says it's just about almost 101% of our total taxes.
Yes. Yeah.
Seeing no further comments or questions there, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Introduction of bylaws, beekeeping bylaw. Development Officer Fletcher.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight, we've got the beekeeping bylaw coming back to council. So we've received several requests over this last few years on wanting to keep bees in their backyards. So one of the interested parties has come back to us and would like us to implement a bylaw to regulate the keeping of bees. So staff drafted a bylaw and brought that to the October 11th council meeting, where it received first reading from council. And council directed staff to conduct public engagement regarding the bylaw before bringing it back for second and third reading. So public engagement has since been conducted, and a summary of the feedback is provided in the report. So the bee industry is regulated by the Apiaries Act. It has lots of requirements in it, including a valid certificate from the minister. It doesn't contain specific requirements for beekeeping, such as distance from property lines, number of hives. So this bylaw will address some of those. Over the past several years, municipalities have seen a growing interest from members of the public to participate in backyard beekeeping, and some municipalities have chosen to implement bylaws that enable those practices. So staff have researched some of those municipalities and reached out to them, specifically in Saskatchewan, regarding whether they allow for beekeeping and what rules have been applied, and if they've had any issues since allowing for it. So we've attached Appendix A, which has a summary of some of the research that we found. So we drafted a beekeeping bylaw, and some of the key points include requiring a beekeeping license that would be renewed annually, beekeeping on single and semi-detached residential properties. It allows for 2 hives on a property less than 1,000 square meters, which would be most properties in Weyburn, 3 hives on a property 1,000 square meters to 2,000, and 4 hives on more than 2,000 square meters. They must be located in the rear yard, a minimum of 1 meter from any property line with a fence, and a minimum height of 1.8 meters for that fence. So we've made a couple changes since first reading. They're fairly minor. The offenses and penalties section has been changed to provide for all other offenses instead of just offenses under specific sections of the bylaw. And Section 4 enforcement has been reordered and reworded to provide clarity. So the public input. We conducted public engagement regarding the proposed bylaw, and the call for feedback was posted on the website October 12th and closed November 4th. During the consultation period, 29 responses were received through the website, and 1 formal response was received that they wanted provided directly to council, and that's been attached to the report. So 29 responses received, and only 2 were opposed to the implementation of the beekeeping bylaw. Primary concerns from those opposed related to bee stings, allergies and medical concerns, bylaw enforcement, and swarms. The remaining 27 positive responses included a variety of positive comments about the benefits of bees, including pollination, the importance to the environment and ecosystem, production of honey, and improving the declining bee population. A few comments received were supportive of the requirements for beekeepers to be educated and trained, limits on the number of hives, and having some simple rules. There was 1 comment about the fence requirement and wanting it to be removed. However, staff have reviewed this request, and given most municipalities require at least a hedge or fence, staff do not want to remove the requirement at this time. A fence serves as a visual screening from the neighboring properties. It's important to remember that this is a brand-new bylaw for the city of Weyburn. So upon implementation, city staff will monitor progress and outcomes of the bylaw to determine if future amendments are required. Staff plan to conduct a review within the first 2 years of implementing the bylaw to see if there are any areas for changes or improvements. So council's options tonight, option 1 would be that city council gives second and third reading to bylaw 2022-3449 as presented with amendments. Option number 2 would be that city council requests amendments to the bylaw before second reading. Or option number 3 would be city council refuses to give second and third reading to the bylaw. So the staff recommendation would be option number 1, to give bylaw 2022-3449 second and third reading at this meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Roy. I'd like to make the motion that bylaw 2022-3449, a bylaw for the keeping of bees in the city of Weyburn, be read a second time with those amendments.
Your worship, I'd like to second that motion.
Comments? I'll just make one comment that I totally agree with you, Ms. Fletcher, on the idea that we don't get it right. A lot of the laws come into place and they don't get it right at the start. And as the years go by, we have to make amendments. So this is first out the gate, and we'll see how this goes. We'll monitor it, and we'll go from there. And if there's things that are not working either side, for the beekeepers or for the city side, we can always come back and open it. It's not written in stone and concrete and everything. They're always changeable. Bylaws are always changeable. So with that, call the question. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Third reading.
I'd like to make the motion that bylaw 2022-3449, a bylaw for the keeping of bees in the city of Weyburn, be read a third time and passed.
Your worship, I'd like to second that motion.
Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Bylaw is passed. And bees will be allowed within the city within the regulations of the bylaws. So there. What is that? We have one of our beekeepers here, Alexander. If you would, did you want to make any comment or no? It's good? No, good. Pardon me? The bylaw is passed, yes. Good. If you just want to come up forward here for a minute, so, and just press the button.
I didn't expect such a meeting today. Didn't prepare any speech, sorry. Yeah, I think it's great what that law passed today. Yeah, I know 5 persons who interested. They don't have a bees at the property of Weyburn yet, but they maybe will. But I still think we will have not enough bees around. So it will be such a small amount. Nobody will ever notice a bees in town. And we just discussed with Donette today about bee swarm situation. And I think we came up with the idea we will have numbers of you beekeepers who can contact straight if they even see it. And as I told Donette today, bee swarms comes through our town. They do. Like I picked 4 swarms since 2018 in town area. So they coming from south and they are around. And yeah, I guess if you have question you can ask, and if I can't answer, I do my best.
Mr. Van Betju?
So in essence, what you're saying is if we have more beekeepers, then the ability to control the swarm is actually better than it is right now where we have fewer beekeepers.
Yeah, because like in 2008, like first swarm, when I came to Canada, the swarm come to work and sit on a pipe this high from the ground. And like guys, like mechanics who I work with, they were going to grab a torch and torch him down. And I said, hey, no, that's a honeybee. It's not wasp. It's not something aggressive. It's a honeybee. So I just wipe him in a box and put in a corner of Young's equipment. And they were sitting there for 2 years. And over these 2 years, they were able to watch it, observe. I give him honey in a week after I put him in the box. And after time, they just figure out, oh yeah, that wasn't a smart idea to kill them because they actually interesting insects. And like I am from Ukraine, and I grew up in town, 1,200 people in that town. So in that town has around 500 colonies. That's what we can count off. So in our area, we will not have such amount, I'm pretty sure. If we have 15, 20, that's probably will be our max.
Thank you for the
So
information.
I think amount of bees we are going to have in our town, nobody really will notice it, who is worried. But I figure there is a main situation, people just don't know what it is, and they don't know what deal with it.
So, well, thank you, and the bylaw is passed, and you can go forward.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The building bylaw. Mr. Warren.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. So we have a report here tonight from Building Official Amanda Kaufman. So the City of Weyburn currently has a building bylaw adopted under the Uniform Building and Accessibility Standards Act. In 2021, the UBAS Act was replaced by the Construction Codes Act, and therefore the building bylaw in reference therein needs to be updated. So there are some proposed changes provided by Amanda in this report. So two changes. One is under definitions, so changes of add definitions for designated officer, and also add definition for unsafe condition. Second change is under unsafe condition. Add this section to replace divisions 2, 3, 4, and 5 from the property maintenance and nuisance abatement bylaw as their code-related minimum standards, which are set out through the National Building Code. So recommendation for administration tonight is to have first reading of bylaw 2022-3451.
Your Worship, I'll make a motion that bylaw 2022-3451, the building bylaw for the City of Weyburn, be read a first time.
I'll second that.
Questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. So now this will come back, when?
The next meeting, I think, November.
Next November.
It can come back on November 28th.
Okay. And then at that time, public has a chance.
Yeah, if anybody wants to read up on it, it'll be on our website. They can read about it, or they can certainly call and ask questions of us here.
Okay. City Manager, next item, maintenance and nuisance abatement bylaw.
Thanks, Your Worship. So again, I have a report from our building official, Amanda Kaufman, for property maintenance bylaw. So the City of Weyburn currently has a property maintenance and nuisance abatement bylaw, which is in a place to assist in regulating property maintenance and standards along with neighborhood standards to provide a healthy and safe community for all. The current bylaw was adopted in 2004, and it needs to be updated. The following is a list of changes that are being recommended by Amanda. So under definitions, changing building, amended the definition to be the same as what the City Act includes. Bylaw enforcement officer, there's an added definition for that. Designated officer as well. Habitual room, same thing. And the municipal inspector, so definitions for all those. Under Part 2 of the nuisances, removed of Section 8.5, Section 9.2, and Section 10.2, all of which stated that after being served with an order for noncompliance, no person shall be permit the same to occur. Next change was to remove Division 2, which is under building standards for exteriors. Next one is to remove Division 3, which is building standards for interiors. Next change is to remove Division 4, which is additional standards for dwelling units. Next change is to remove Division 5, which is for building, basement and attic occupancies. And then the last one on this section is Part 5, which is old Part 4, which is enforcement. Change the administration enforcement of this bylaw from the Director of Engineering Services to the bylaw enforcement officer or other designate. Next change is under Part 5, Section 10. Added point 4, which is after having been served with an order under any provision of this bylaw, no person or owner shall permit or allow the same contravention to occur. So historically, the nuisance and abatement bylaw, inspections, orders, enforcements to carry out work and invoicing was all done through the engineering department. Therefore, some of the information was out of date and needed to be brought to current. All divisions pertaining to buildings and dwelling units have been moved into the building bylaw under a new section, as those issues are building code related and can be constituted an unsafe condition under the New Construction Codes Act. A new procedures and process for bylaw enforcement will also be reviewed and used to ensure consistency. Bylaw enforcement is regulated under the Cities Act, with some with the Cities Act with some minimum requirements, and the City of Weyburn needs to ensure that we're doing a proper process for that. Again, I'm looking for recommendation of first reading for bylaw 2022-3452.
Your worship, I'll make the motion that bylaw 2022-3452, the property maintenance and nuisance abatement bylaw for the City of Weyburn, be read a first time.
Your worship, I will second that motion.
Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Development Officer Fletcher, if you would please, the official community plan amendment.
Thank you, Your Worship. Zoning bylaw amendment application and corresponding official community plan amendment application have been submitted by Crosby, Hanna and Associates on behalf of the Saskatchewan Health Authority. The application pertains to 275 Fifth Avenue North. It's proposed parcel H on the plan of subdivision attached. It's the parcel that's intended for the future Weyburn General Hospital. The request is to redesignate the property in the official community plan from the existing future residential designation to community service, and that the property be rezoned from urban holding to health service zone. These changes are requested to facilitate the development of the new Weyburn General Hospital. The property is currently under a subdivision application, which will create the parcel for the hospital. I won't read all the legal land descriptions. The properties were city-owned and were previously leased out as hayland. There's a residential development to both the east and west of the proposed parcel. So that's the area we're looking at of the existing parcels. And then the proposed plan of subdivision is on the next page. And I've highlighted the parcel in red for where the hospital will be located, conveniently parcel H. So if council proceeds with first reading of these bylaws at this meeting, then public notices will be sent out in accordance with the city's public notice policy for the public hearing to occur on December 12th at the regular council meeting. The proposal is for SHA to build the new hospital on parcel H. The new hospital will replace the existing hospital at 201 First Avenue Northeast. The OCP and zoning amendment are required to facilitate the development of the hospital on the subject property, as it's currently zoned UH urban holding, which does not allow for a hospital. So the property currently has a future residential land use designation in the official community plan, and a portion along Fifth Avenue is designated parks and open space. The applicant is requesting that the lands be designated community services on the land use designation map of the OCP. The community services land use designation was not previously included in the OCP. However, in consultation with staff and the consultants, it was determined that a new zone and land use designation would be best to accommodate the new hospital. Previously, hospitals were only allowed in the R3 residential multiple housing as a discretionary use. The purpose of this designation is to provide for areas that allow for major community service uses such as hospitals, high schools, post-secondary institutions, and other similar uses. This designation enables the zoning bylaw to have zones to accommodate community services, which are compatible with residential areas but may not fit with the traditional residential zoning. For example, they have larger lots, they have higher maximum heights, and there may be special regulations for accessory uses. The subject property has been identified as an area for future development of residential, and given that there are sufficient areas already designated for residential that have not been developed, the transition to community service designation is appropriate, as community services are generally sited within existing and new residential areas to create complete communities. So the statements of provincial interest. The proposal is consistent with the SPIs, that the redesignation supports enhancing the physical and mental health and well-being of Saskatchewan people pursuant to Section 6.15 of the SPIs. It also encourages opportunities for the development of facilities that are necessary to meet the well-being of all Saskatchewan residents, and it contributes to complete communities by providing access to essential services within residential neighborhoods. So the property is currently zoned UH urban holding, which allows for very limited development and is intended to protect lands from premature development and for the orderly transition from agricultural lands to urban development. There's also a small portion of the land along Fifth Avenue that's parks and open space, which will be rezoned to the health services zone. The applicant has requested that the health services district be created. This would allow for a hospital as a permitted use, as well as clinics and laboratories and other uses consistent with health services. The zone was proposed to be added to the zoning bylaw, as the R3 zone is the only zone that allows for a hospital. However, some of the regulations would have to be amended for the new hospital, and the health service zone allows for some accessory uses and related uses to a hospital that would allow for greater flexibility in the future. So I've put an overlay of the zoning map on the subdivision. The zoning amendment also includes amendments to other sections of the zoning bylaw to add regulations for the health service zone, such as fences, signs, and the definitions. So if council gives first reading to these bylaws tonight, staff will bring these bylaws forward to the next district planning committee or commission meeting for input. Once the official community plan amendment is approved, it has to go to the Minister of Government Relations for ministerial approval. So that would happen once council has given all three readings. So council's options tonight would be to give first reading to both bylaws. So the one to be to amend the official community plan to designate the above mentioned lands as community services on the future land use map and land use designation map. And first reading to bylaw 2022-3454, being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw to rezone the lands from UH and POS to health services zone, and the other associated amendments. And that council directs administration to advertise the bylaws as per the public notice policy. Or option number 2 would be to refuse to give first reading to both bylaws and direct administration to advise the applicant of the refusal, and the reasons for refusal would have to be provided tonight. Staff recommendation would be to option number 1, to give first reading to both bylaws.
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that bylaw 2022-3453, excuse me, being a bylaw to amend the official community plan to designate the property at 275 Fifth Avenue North, proposed parcel H, as community services on future land use and land use designation map, be read a first time, and that staff be directed to advertise bylaw 2022-3453 as per the public notice policy.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Comments? Go ahead.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just want to say good work. That was an awful lot you had to say there, Janine, but it's very encouraging to see these steps being taken closer towards the hospital. So thank you for your hard work.
Mr. Van Betju?
I think I missed this and I wasn't sure. So does it have to go to our district planning before it can be advertised?
It goes as part of that notice process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it has to go to district planning first, or not?
It will go before, it will go as the
The reason I
public
ask
notice
is I wonder if
happens.
it's something we can send to district planning in an email and do it to expedite it a little bit rather than waiting till the next district planning meeting.
Well, the next district planning meeting would be at the end of November, and this can't come back until December 12th anyways, because of the public notice process.
Okay, it requires 4 weeks. Okay, so thank you.
But as I said, it's nice to see that this is a step forward. We're very positive steps forward as we're moving forward with this. Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Zoning bylaw amendment 3454. You said everything already, so Do we have a motion?
Your worship, I move that bylaw 2022-3454, being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw for the purpose of rezoning the property at 275 Fifth Avenue North, proposed parcel H, from the Urban Holdings and Parks Open Space and Recreation Zone to Health Services Zone and other associated, be read a first time, and that staff be directed to advertise bylaw 2022-3454 as per the public notice policy.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
And comments again? Go ahead.
Your Worship, Administration, with the understanding that Council would very much have liked to have brought these two motions forward a long time ago and wasn't able to, is there any concern that our process is going to become a hindrance to progress, or is it fit within the timeframes?
No, we are seeing all the requirements from both SAS Builds and from SHA. So the timing is in line with what has been requested by both those parties moving forward. And we've had great conversations with both SHA and SAS Builds to ensure that we're working in cooperation through this process. Has been going really quite well.
Okay, that is excellent news. Thank you.
It's also very good that these bylaws are, the bylaw is making accommodation for extra clinics to be built around there, and that's a positive gain, is what we hopefully these extra clinics will be built in the future, but we are looking forward to it, and that's our administration is forward thinking of looking to the future as to what we can do here. Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. There's no unfinished business. New business. City Manager, employee benefits provider review.
Actually, Your Worship, we have our HR consultant, Nicole Spagger, who will be providing that presentation tonight.
Thank you for having me. All right, so as you are aware, the City of Weyburn has had the same benefits provider since 1973. And that has been through SUMA and Canada Life. And so in June of 2022, we determined that we would engage with George & Bell Benefits Consulting to do a thorough review of the costs and benefit structures. In September, George & Bell put out a request for proposal on behalf of the city for vendors to issue proposals and quotes, and we received 5 in total. One provider, which was Sun Life, declined to quote, but the providers that quoted were GSW, which is Green Shield Canada, with Wawanesa Life, Manulife, Saskatchewan Blue Cross, SUMA, which was the incumbent, and the cooperators. So the following information was taken into consideration when reviewing the RFPs from each vendor, which was the comparison of annual costs on an apples-to-apples basis between the vendors and current providers. So basically, what benefits our employees are currently getting, how much we're paying to receive them through SUMA and Canada Life, and what the other vendor would be able to provide those exact same benefits for. The duration of the quoted rate guarantee, so how long could they guarantee that rate they quoted, and then ranking those between vendors and the current provider. What, if any, rate discounts were provided by the vendor, and the ranking between the vendors and current providers. So in order to get our business, would they be giving us any discounts, and for how long would those discounts apply for? And then any caps to rate increases following expiry of the rate guarantee, and then the ranking between the vendors and the current provider. So based on that information, we received a cost comparison between each vendor, and Saskatchewan Blue Cross came in the lowest, about $60,000 less than the incumbent SUMA, which would be about a 13% decrease to overall costs. Now, we did look at a 5-year projection to see what that would look like if we did go with, stay with our current vendor or go with a different vendor. For basic life, accidental death and disability, LTD and EAP, we are making the assumption that premium rates will move to the manual rate following expiry of the rate guarantees, and for employee health and dental, trended forward each year at 7% for EHC and 3.5% for dental to establish experience rates. So just a little caveat that no projections for headcount, trend, or anticipated experience were completed. But the 5-year projection is that the Saskatchewan Blue Cross discounting is the most substantial, especially in the first 36 months. The large increase at 37 months would be due to the expiry of the life and disability rate guarantees, as well as the 10% cap on health and dental increases for the first renewal. Based on the analysis as outlined, Saskatchewan Blue Cross offers a reduction versus maintaining status quo with SUMA, and that's about a reduction of about $160,000 over 5 years. However, this amount that they have projected for SUMA is the today's amount, and we have actually seen an increase in our benefits cost from SUMA of about $20,000 a year the last 3 years. We've also looked at deviations. That's where the insurer was unable to match the current plan as provided by SUMA and Canada Life. And I've only outlined Blue Cross is because that's the one that we've kind of been looking at, and you can see in the chart that it's minimal deviations. We've also looked at benefit maximums for each of the vendors, and it's important to note that no employees will see reduced coverage due to transition. In fact, they'll receive more coverage by going to a different provider. We also looked at other factors such as account management, commitment to service levels, governance, administrative offerings, specialty services, and transition. We had done a survey for our employees to find out what information was most important to them. And so this is information that we actually gleaned from our employees, and we felt it was important to ask in the RFP process. It's important to note that SUMA was the only vendor that required the City of Weyburn to utilize them for administrative services. All vendors but SUMA confirmed availability of a robust mobile app to submit claims, view claims, understand coverage, and direct submission for a variety of providers. Overall, all vendors but SUMA had comparable service level commitments. They also provided agreements with regards to transition, and each vendor offered value adds with the exception of SUMA if we were to utilize their services. So while there are minor differences across each proposal, it became apparent that SUMA lagged its competitors in most areas of review, and that's our current provider. While SUMA's costs are among the least expensive, it is for an offering that appears to be less competitive than other vendors. Is likely the easiest short-term solution, no transition to our employees, just maintaining status quo. However, it is the least effective long-term solution because of limited strength in the plan management capabilities compared to other vendors. On the other hand, Saskatchewan Blue Cross is considered the best option based on the proposals for a positive long-term relationship that will provide the city with greater functionality of benefits while at the same time having a lower cost which can be used to fund the plan improvements. So it's important to note that while Blue Cross did come in less than SUMA, we don't know what that looks like moving forward and how to pass along the savings because some of our plans, so long-term disability and short-term disability are 100% employee funded. So without looking further into it, we don't know if we can pass along any of those savings to our employees yet. We just know it's not going to cost them any more. And so for any savings, the plan is actually to pass along what we can, but to put it into a reserve fund as well for the future so that if costs do go up in the future, which likely they will, we will have some funds set aside to work with. So the recommendation today is that Saskatchewan Blue Cross be awarded the benefit provider contract with the City of Weyburn.
With that, go ahead.
Your Worship, I would like to make a motion that as per the recommendation of HR consultant Spag Root, the request for proposal for the benefit provider contract for the City of Weyburn employees from Saskatchewan Blue Cross be accepted with the terms as presented.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion? Questions? Go ahead.
Not really a question, more as a comment. I think when I was reading through there, Nicole, it appears that Blue Cross is going to be better than SUMA also for providing information to the city and to the employees as to what's covered, what's not covered. It'll be much more straightforward and much better information sharing process than we were receiving from SUMA, which is a big benefit, I think, if that's the case.
Absolutely. Right now, we don't actually know what our employees are using in terms of benefits because SUMA doesn't provide reports, nor do they have the ability to provide reports. Whereas with Saskatchewan Blue Cross, we can actually access it on a monthly basis to see, okay, what are our employees using? Are they using the majority of their employee health on chiropractor? So that we can make informed decisions moving forward as to what kind of benefits are most appropriate for our employees. So yeah, absolutely.
We see that as a very good and well-researched, and thank you. Appreciate that greatly. Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Well done again, and thank you. And we're, as we show that we wish to give the best for our city employees who do the heavy lifting for us. Home-based business application, hair salon, Development Officer Fletcher.
I'll try not to bore you with my voice tonight. So an application has been received to operate a personal service business, being a hair salon, out of their residence at 656 Butters Bay. It's located in the R1 zone. The business will operate Tuesday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. The evenings would be occasional. This would be considered a controversial use as the business involves clients being directed to the home throughout the day. The applicant anticipates a minimal traffic increase with one client attending the home at a time and approximately 3 to 5 clients per day, and parking is available on the driveway. Neighborhood notices were required to be sent out as a controversial home-based business. They were mailed out October 31st to all neighbors within 50 meters of the applicant's home. Residents receiving the notice were given the opportunity to comment on the application. No concerns or objections were received at the time of writing this report, and none have been received. So home-based businesses are permitted use. They have to generally meet the following provisions: be incidental to the use of the premise as a residence, be compatible with residential uses, be limited in extent in terms of volume of materials sold and number of clients, not substantially increase the volume of traffic, and not detract from the residential character of the zone. Staff have reviewed the application and are of the opinion that the home-based business meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw, and therefore are recommending option number 1 to council. Option number 1 is that council approves the home-based business permit 2022.013 at 656 Butters Bay, subject to the following conditions, and I won't read them all out tonight. Option number 2 would be to refuse the home-based business permit, and the reasons would have to be provided tonight.
Motion, please.
Your Worship, I move that the home-based permit 2022.013 to allow for personal service at 656 Butters Bay, Lot 6, Block 8, Plan 84R25416 be approved, subject to the conditions provided.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. You raised your left hand.
I was going to ask Janine a question,
Oh,
because I know she wants to talk some more.
Okay.
I couldn't come up with one quick.
Oh, I see. So that's why you raised your left hand. Okay, the discretionary application, use application, now it's your chance to be on this one. You can ask her. 424 10th Avenue Southeast, if you would, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. So a discretionary use development permit application has been received from Cedar and Vine Design for the renovations and change of use from the previously city-owned community recreation facility to a variety of uses, including a custom workshop, studios, restaurant, and 2 residential units. The subject property is 424 10th Avenue Southeast. Site is currently zoned DCD1. Direct Control, Signal Hill Heritage Mixed Use Direct Control District. And studios, custom workshop, and restaurant are all considered discretionary uses in that zone. The applicants are proposing to convert the existing building to a mixed-use building with several commercial spaces as well as 2 residential units. It's located on 10th Avenue Southeast, north of Heritage Village and east of the community gardens. And there's a map of the property there. They've submitted site plans of the areas that they will be using and what those will be used for. I will note the first floor studio space would be considered the custom workshop. It's Cedar and Vine. They make linen clothes out of it, and it doesn't meet the definition of a studio, so it'd be a custom workshop. And the restaurant is the coffee shop space. So discretionary uses require a neighborhood notice to be sent out to all residents within a 75-meter radius of the property, notifies them of the application and the opportunity to provide their concerns and feedback to council. Notices were sent on October 27th. No responses were received. So the development is consistent with the official community plan, as it is a mixed-use development and promotes the adaptive reuse of a heritage designated building. The Direct Control District 1 zone was specifically designed for the property at 424 10th Ave to allow for redevelopment opportunities that respect the heritage designation and character-defining elements of the building, while being compatible with the surrounding area land uses. The proposal includes the custom workshop known as Cedar and Vine Design, as well as studio space for various businesses such as photographers and artists. The proposal also includes a coffee shop, which would be classified as a restaurant under the zoning bylaw. So the 2 residential units are also proposed. One would be the former caretaker's unit, and the other would be the top 2 floors of the building. The DCD1 zone requires that all development permits be reviewed with consideration for the heritage designation and potential effects on the character-defining elements. Staff have reviewed the application with consideration for the designation and are of the opinion that the proposal will not impact the character-defining elements, as it will not alter the exterior appearance of the building. A total of 22 parking spaces are required to be provided on site for all of the uses, and 1 parking space must meet the requirements for a barrier-free space. So the options tonight would be to approve the development permit without further conditions. Option number 2 would be approve the development permit for renovations and change of use to studio, custom workshop, restaurant, and 2 residential units at 424 10th Ave South, subject to the following conditions: a minimum of 22 off-street parking spaces, including 1 barrier-free parking space, shall be provided on site in accordance with section 4.6 of the zoning bylaw. A barrier-free path must be provided to the barrier-free parking stall. Parking areas must be maintained as a dust-free, graveled, or hard-surfaced area. The development shall generally be consistent with the application and plan submitted. Exterior alterations are not within the scope of this approval. Future alterations to the exterior will require separate approval. Building permit shall be required, and a City of Weyburn business license shall be obtained prior to operation. Option number 3 would be to refuse the development permit. The reasons for refusal would have to be provided tonight. So the staff recommendation would be that the development permit application meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw. Therefore, staff are recommending option number 2 to approve the discretionary use development permit with the conditions listed.
You have a motion, please?
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that the discretionary use permit 2022.032 for renovations and change of use to studio, custom workshop, restaurant, and 2 residential units at 424 10th Avenue Southeast be approved, subject to the conditions provided.
Your Worship, I'd like to second that motion.
Discussion?
Thanks, Your Worship. Hey, thanks, Janine. I think this is an awesome report. I'm actually really excited about this. I'm so happy that stuff is happening up there. My question, I think I know the answer to, but I need you to confirm. This property is still operating under a municipal tax concession.
I believe so, yes. Yeah.
This won't have any impact on that. Won't cause them to be ineligible, or won't cause a change to that?
Nope.
No, great. That's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Other questions? I was going to say. Anyway, with that being said, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Inquiries and announcements.
Thank you, Your Worship. On behalf of the Weyburn Public Library Board, I just want to send a huge thank you to the community, to anyone who donated and then purchased books from the semi-annual book sale. They raised $4,892.30. So start collecting those books for the spring book sale as well.
Okay. Matthew, I take it you've got a timeline?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I just want to remind the public that they have until November the 18th, to provide any comments back to council and back to administration about budget. I'd like to thank the residents who've provided information to date. But again, just a reminder that we were accepting comments through our budget website until the 18th, and then we'll provide that information back at the November 28th council meeting.
Mr. Janke.
Your Worship, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Weyburn Eagles football team who represented our city valiantly at the provincial finals in Saskatoon this week.
That's correct. Lynette?
Thanks, Your Worship. The City of Weyburn will now be accepting nominations for the 2023 Walk of Fame. This award recognizes the honors the outstanding achievements of our community's citizens who have made significant contributions to the national or global landscape. Nominations will be accepted until December 31st, 2022 for the 2023 induction year. A maximum of 2 inductees will be honored in 2023. Nomination forms and criteria information can be found on the City of Weyburn website, or you can contact myself, and you can make nominations to the City Clerk, which is myself. The Walk of Fame Committee looks forward to receiving submissions for some of Weyburn's most outstanding residents.
Very good. Speaking of which, the Queen's Jubilee medals applicants or finalists were selected, and when is that? Do you know when those will be awarded?
I don't at this time, Your Worship, so the names have been provided to the provincial government. They have to get back to us on the approval for those. Once we do have that, we'll make a formal announcement about that at that time.
Okay. Anything else? There's one of the things that I'd like to announce on behalf of our council here. The City of Weyburn and Weyburn City Council offers its deepest sympathies to the town of Radville, its administration, council, and fire department after the tragic structural loss last week. Our thoughts and condolences go to the entire community of Radville. The City of Weyburn is here to offer support where we can in the coming days, months, and years as you rebuild. We are relieved to know that no lives were lost at the time. We're also thankful the City of Weyburn Fire Services were available to offer assistance. On behalf of the community of Weyburn, our hearts go out to you, our neighbors, our friends, and our regional family. We also would also like to say one more time, because although I'm not on Rant and Rage or Facebook on that as such on there, but I hear comments from the public. The haunted house that Weyburn was able to give to Heritage Village, the haunted house was just unbelievably exceptional. On there are many members. There are people, again, like I said, at the last day, stood in line for 3 hours and still didn't get in. But the people that went through there most certainly had a great haunting out of the experience, and it was well done on this. So it led to a very good thing in the community. Any other comments? Nothing more for that. There's no notice of motion. Just before we go to there, our next council meeting will be when, Danette?
November 28th, 6 p.m.
November 28th, 6 p.m. And with that, I shall call the meeting adjourned.